So they're noticing it. So that is an important group, because that could be the group where we could stop it from getting worse. Because that's the time when cells are dying, but they haven't died to the point where, if we could preserve those cells that are still there and increase the functioning of those cells, we could create a better life for them and prevent some of the worsening and complications. So same example as diabetes, doctors is not treating just diabetes, but treating the kidneys and the eyes and the heart and everybody, just to make sure that the things don't get worse down the road. So this is an important group. And if you can find a cure that can stop the cells from dying, it means your march towards Alzheimer's disease will be halted. It would not go any further. And some of the treatments that we're working on, our hope is that they will pan out and will stop the cells from dying further so we can stop the march. It also helps to diagnose it early so that people can make changes in their life. So if somebody gets a diagnosis of a coronary artery disease, the doctor tells them, you have to take your cholesterol medication, you have to watch your diet, you have to prevent diabetes, you have to exercise, and you will get a stress test every year. And refrain from something which is strenuous. So the doctor can make not just medications, but the doctor has given a whole recipe of things to prevent further complications. So same way in Alzheimer's disease, if you can find it earlier, we can make changes in life. In addition, there are things which affect our social life and economics. So those are important things. So things for our caregivers. What would happen to our loved ones, or if something happens to one of the spouses, what to do for the other one. The families can come together and decide upon the future. There are money issues, there are other legal issues that could be happening in families. So it allows those things. It also, when somebody is in a very mild stage or early stage, they can participate in what their wishes are. They can make those wishes known, how aggressive they want treatment, what kind of things they would want. So it is also an important part of overall evaluation. The best thing would be that if you could find a treatment that will stop the illness right there and then, that would be the great thing. Just quickly go over the brain, just to give you an idea. By the way, the handouts you have do not have all the slides, so I apologize for that, because I have more slides than there are on the handouts. So another challenge for us is that we haven't mastered the brain completely. So there are things about the brain that we don't know. And Alzheimer's disease is a brain disease. So what you see here is, this is what we call cerebral hemisphere. It's the part of the brain here, two of them. And this is the part, small part, which is hard to see on a CAT scan or MRI, and we don't have sophisticated ways in clinical practice that can tell us about what's happening with them, their size, if it's a hippocampus, this small piece is getting smaller or bigger. It's a key area in Alzheimer's disease. Our memories are stored here, and they get processed here. And theory is that this is the part of the brain, and we have known from different studies that this is the part of the brain that is affected the first in Alzheimer's disease. And then it spreads to other parts. So it has become an important center for research, because we can look at its size over time, and make an assessment whether the condition is getting worse or not, whether medication somebody is taking are helping or not. But we are still in the developing process. There are studies that are going on that look at this, and there are certain tests that we do. But again, it is not established as a clinical practice. So it's not like you can go to a doctor and say, I want my hippocampus to be imaged and then compared it over a period of time. We are still learning about it. but it is moving on. It is an important development. The brain is made of these cells that I referred to, neurons. It has about billions of them. And these are the key cells. These are the key elements. These are bricks of a house, our brain. And each one is important. And these are the cells that die when we have Alzheimer's disease.
How do you know that?
I'll show you pictures in a few minutes. Okay. The brain is, this has been mapped, and over studies it has been shown that these cells die, and that leads to change in how the brain looks. And I'll show you in a few minutes. There's another part of the brain that we know much less about. It's called cerebellum. The previous one is called cerebrum or cerebral hemisphere. This is more important in our complex cognitive things like language, our problem solving, our higher motor functions. Cerebellum is more of a coordinating center. It is important. It is lower in the brain. We don't know everything about it, but it is another area that is being looked at. Brain stem is more associated with our functions such as our heart and control of our heart and our breathing and all that. These are other small areas of the brain. So now, going back to the question of Alzheimer's disease clinically, okay, and this shows that Alzheimer's disease is a progressive illness, and over time it progresses from very early stage. Let's say if this was normal aging, the first stage here would be called a preclinical phase. By preclinical, it means that the person would look normal. They would not have any symptoms that doctor can say, yes, you have all these symptoms and you have dementia. Like I pointed out, they may have very subtle changes. They may look like they are completely normal. They're just normal age. But now we are becoming a little more sophisticated to tease it apart and divide this phase into a couple of categories. More recently, some of you may have seen that there is new classification. The Alzheimer's Association is playing an important role in that. There are new suggestions about how we parse it so that we can diagnose Alzheimer's disease as early as possible. So this is the stage. It's called mild cognitive impairment. Some of you may have heard this term before. It's called MCI or mild cognitive impairment. This is the stage when people are still able to function. They're still able to take care of themselves and do other things. After that, here, this is the stage where it becomes somewhat easier to diagnose dementia because people have already started having difficulty in their daily functioning. Accounting, driving, cooking, planning. So it's easier, but the problem is that by this stage, like I said, it's too late. You want to diagnose it at this point. Not even at this point. We are diagnosing it at this point, or we want to diagnose it at this point, or even before that. And a lot of research is going in that direction now. This is mild Alzheimer's disease, where there are, clinical symptoms become overt. The doctor can see it, families can see it, so that's how it is. Activities of daily living are affected, then there it goes to moderate stage, and then where a person becomes having more trouble, not just in their complex activities like shopping and cooking, but they also start having problems in their dressing and toileting and their walking. And then there is a severe stage. A lot of people at that point start having difficulty remembering even names of family members or their own names, and they become medically more complex, and they have psychiatric symptoms, and they become they become very dependent on family members, and that creates not just a person suffering, but the caregiver is also at that point where they are sometimes not able to take care of their family member.
The other types of dementia, like vascular, is it the same decline?
No, vascular dementia has somewhat different decline. This is about Alzheimer's dementia. This is typical, and like I pointed out earlier, this helps us to differentiate vascular dementia from Alzheimer's. In Alzheimer's, this is a classic pattern that you see. A slowly progressive illness which goes through these stages. Sometimes families may not even be able to identify when this happened because it's so slow. Overall, it's about 10 years of time, 10, 12 years on average, that people go through, and they ultimately go to the terminal stage. Now, yes?
Question, is that with the disease, that medication is designed to slow the progression, is that still slowly looking at?
This is the pattern, I would say, without the treatment. With the treatment at this point, I'll show you a graph. What will happen that this bar, this line, will move upwards. So, for example, it will go like this. You see that?
Yeah, so it would be longer than 10 years.
No, it will be the same. But the quality of life would be different. So, for example, here I could make a different graph and show what kind of symptoms they would have. Those symptoms would be either less severe, or some of them may not be there. That would be the advantage. It's because this line is sort of, it represents what they are losing. So if you move this line up, it means they lose less of it.
So it's like roughly like 2.5 years of stage then?
It's hard. This is just an estimate. I won't say that. That's okay. No problem. I wish there were like lines like this. This is just for understanding. It doesn't mean the brain also splits like that. It doesn't. And the illness is these are estimates for us as clinicians, as well as family members, and for all other people involved. It helps to understand different stages, so we can understand where they are, and the treatments could be developed in different ways, and there are different particular situations that happen. So, for example, in moderate to severe, you may see more of depression and agitation and anger and all that, while in mild state, there is a little more anxiety that is seen. So there could be some differences in there. Okay, so now the same question that you asked, if we had a way to differentiate that, okay, this is the point where mild changes happen, and this is where the moderate or this is severe. We don't have those maps at this point. I mean, there are certainly maps, but they don't go by exact same thing to differentiate what is happening in the brain. We have ideas here. So this is just a cartoon to show that the brain changes are happening. In mild state, they are smaller, and as the disease progresses, they become bigger. Okay? Right now, these are the stages that we are calling dementia, and these are the stages where we have treatments. But like I said, this is too late. The brain cells have died. We can't stop them from dying further. We can't bring a person's cells that have died back. So we can't bring what they achieved before, they can't bring them to that point. So it would make sense. What happens before it? Person is normal at this point, and then there is a stage called mild cognitive impairment. Now, currently there is no FDA-approved treatment for this stage.